Frank, Frank, come on, in, man.
Say something, anything at all there.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That'll 1, 2, 3. That'll do. We're in business. I'll get you a bit of water.
Thank you.
You have the title Adventurer.
Yeah, uncomfortably.
Are you?
Yeah, I don't like it.
Do you not?
No. I don't know, like, is there anything, is there such a thing as adventures these days? You know, there's no Livingstons and Shackletons and, you know, everything's been mapped, you know, so I know where I'm going. Maybe I'm internally adventuring, but I prefer the statement, I like to live an adventurous life instead of I'm an adventurer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still think it's a pretty cool fucking title. Honestly, I think that... yeah, I was looking at it going, God, is there many better careers? You might like to call it yourself, but living the adventurous life, there's not many careers that are kind of, you go, yeah, but that's pretty damn cool. Like, is there, like, if you were to think about all the careers that you could be, adventurer is probably up there.
Yeah, sure. And there's a reason I kind of do these things, you know, because, you know, I love the kind of romanticism of the adventure, you know. I love kind of just... you know, taking off. I said it in one of my videos, just putting on a backpack, hopping on a plane and arriving in a country, you know, where, you know, you've never been before, and all the kind of the new stuff that comes with that, the sights and the sounds and the people and the smells. And, you know, I'm like, next month I'm going to Iran, and I'm, you know, kind of just going to backpack around and couch surf and maybe try and hitchhike. And I'm really excited about that, because like, it's just, there's so much unknown. I've never been in the country. And you know, we're just fed so much bullshit in the press about different countries, and I love going and discovering them myself. And there's like, it's a real exciting way to live, I think, and it's a real I don't know, you learn a lot when you live like that, and you're brave in your decisions and you push yourself. And yeah, I love living like that, you know. I think like, I've evolved into that, you know. I didn't just one day just start and do some crazy adventure, but I suppose it's my personality that I kind of keep having to try and do more and improve and try and develop, you know. So the first trip I took on my own was like when I was 22. I went to just Budapest for a weekend on my own, and that at that time was huge for me, you know what I mean, just traveling on my own. But now, like, you know, I wouldn't think twice about doing something like that, but it's just been a constant kind of evolution of pushing myself along, and that's where I find myself now, doing kind of, you know, ocean rows, and, you know.
And tell me this though, when did you make the plan to go to Iran? Was this before you went on the ocean row?
Yeah, it's been a country, I didn't get to travel much. I love traveling. I didn't get to travel much last year at all, because the preparation for the row was so crazy. And the next country that I really wanted to, you know, discover was Iran. So now is the time. Kind of the row is done, and I have a little bit of downtime. So. And
when did you book that? Was that like well before you started? Was it in the last 6 months?
No, just there, like in the last couple of weeks.
Okay. So you finished the row, and then.
Yeah.
So you weren't able to sit.
Huh? What's that?
No, you weren't able to sit. I'm amused that you finished the row.
Yeah.
So you had already fucking another one booked. There exactly. You go. Yeah. Okay.
I kind of work off goals, like, you know, and I have a goal to visit every country in the world. Right. But I wanted I'm not like, I don't want to run around just ticking them off. You know, I want to experience the countries. So especially interesting ones, like it's not Liechtenstein, you know, where you could probably walk around it in a couple of days, you know what I mean? So a country like Iran, I really want to kind of just, you know, I suppose try and get an essence of their culture and how they live, and, you know, meet the people and give it a good kind of you know, respect, and, you know, delve into the country a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw something like or was Humans of New York. You know, the way they half decent things from time to time, but they had pictures up of people from Iran, and obviously, like you said, we're kind of fed this bullshit, but it's just ordinary people trying to live.
Same as you and me, right?
Yeah, absolutely no difference whatsoever. You know, and I love that idea that he had one picture of somebody who's after breaking up with the girlfriend, and like all real simple stuff. The rest is just kind of bullshit that we're fed.
Yeah, completely. And, you know, just like us, just trying to survive, just trying to be happy, just trying to, you know, take care of their families and enjoy themselves. But I don't know, there's something in kind of pressing that, or there's always some sort of kind of, I don't know, we're fed kind of the negative stuff always, and we're like, there's a lot of fear mongering as well with countries like that, and the Islamic thing. But I found from traveling in Islamic countries, they're incredibly welcoming and friendly and generous with their time. And, you know, if you get invited into an Islamic or a Muslim household, like, you're basically a king. You know, you're put on a pedestal, and they just like you're kind of, you almost feel awkward, like you're like, you know, especially as an Irish person, you're like, no, don't fuss, you know, but they absolutely fuss around you like crazy, you know. So, and it's an amazing experience, like just seeing how they live real simply, but they seem to be like really happy, you know. That's obviously a huge
I see ordinary people are just but it's the truth though. I mean, it's only a small percentage of people that are dickheads, really. Yeah, ordinary people are just getting by, eating and drinking and fucking having the chat. Like, I mean, we're not really looking to start a war, the average person, and blow up shit. I don't think.
No, but you sometimes you'd wonder when you're fed, or when you listen to the news or whatever.
Well, when you wipe out, you kind of nearly almost corner a whole nation and going, well, every one of them are evil, which is just ludicrous. These small handfuls.
Yeah, exactly.
So when did you get back from your? I get you that there, John. When did you get back? From, it was the 16th of February you landed?
The 15th I think was the day I landed. And I only got back to Ireland yesterday, or the day before yesterday, sorry. So I spent kind of 6 weeks, 4 weeks in the Caribbean, just travelling around. So my family were there at the finish.
Yeah.
We spent about a week together, 9 days in Antigua after I finished, and then they came home, and I just kind of threw on the backpack and just kind of wandered around some of the Caribbean islands, because, you know, kind of fits into my goals, but also gave me some time to be on my own. That sounds strange, but a little bit of space and kind of freedom.
What was that, do you think, though, the fact that you needed to get time away again?
Just to think, you know, and just to kind of try and process the role, and not only the role, but like the 18 months or the year kind of preparation and all the fundraising events that I did. And that was all really new to me, and it was quite scary at times. And I would say parts of the fundraising, the events I put on were nearly harder than the row, you know. I just was completely out of my comfort zone. So
in what sense is that now? Just the whole social, trying to...
Yeah, I suppose putting yourself out there and leading something and using your name as a kind of I don't know, as a header or a headline, you know, like Damian Browne Atlantic Row, and I'd never done anything like that before, so I felt quite vulnerable at times, and then you're trying to sell events, and like I've never done it, like I said, never done anything like that, so I just felt that I found it really difficult.
It's kind of the mystery though, really, when you talk about that kind of vulnerability and putting yourself out there like that on one side, and then the total fucking facing the Atlantic Ocean on the other side. Is the kind of it's interesting, is it not? You know, it really should be totally fearless. If you were to think about it, I wouldn't give a shit about something like that. Now I would hate doing that. What you're talking about, the whole putting yourself out there thing.
I don't know. I like when it comes to these adventures, like I just feel like I'm made for them. That's where I come into my own. That's where I love that space. Like the harder they are, the more I love them. the more I kind of relish the adversity. But on the other side of things, like when you're doing something new, I think, or kind of overwhelming, it's just, you're just out of your comfort zone, so you never really, like, obviously you never feel comfortable doing it, you know. So I felt that time in the Caribbean would help me, because I wrote, like, you do some, say, I did 3 events: a golf day, a black tie dinner, and a 24-hour kind of team row thing where we set a new world record. But I just felt that I rushed past them all. Like, if I'd done one of them in a year, I'd have been quite happy with myself. To do 3 of them and then still have the row ahead of me, you know, I never really kind of took too much reward or too much fulfillment from them. So I just felt that time in the Caribbean might help me kind of process the whole year and the row and everything. So I'm not too sure if it did, to be honest with you, but it definitely was enjoyable.
Yeah, I was it. Was it an older man gave you a hug when you landed? He had a moustache.
My dad.
That's your dad.
Yeah.
That wasn't that. Obviously, it was emotional, but he said a load of stuff to you, and the hugs there between the two of you was pretty amazing.
Yeah, you know? It was incredible. Yeah, I don't know, like, to share those moments with your family, and like, they're, you know, obviously very powerful, you know, and I think it simply just kind of brings you closer as a family, you know. So you know, hugging him, hugging my mum, and having my brother and sister there as well, and the kind of the 5 of us, just, I don't know, we made kind of very strong life memories just there in that one moment. So, and it's nice to be able to, even though it was a real solitary thing to do, it's really important to share those moments. And yeah,
they rode with you, I'd say, the parents. Looking at your dad's reaction when he was holding on to you there, that was the sense that he rode there. He was there as much as he can be.
Yeah, no, and I talked to them regularly. Like, I mean, I talked to them more on the row than I probably did if I was living in the same house with them.
Yeah, it's normal.
Like, every 2 days, 3 days, they'd ring, and I'd be literally looking forward to the conversation. I had to have the phone call all day, you know what I mean? It's kind of be the highlight of your day, even though you wouldn't have fuck all to say to each other because you just talked 2 days beforehand, and you know. But it was really important for me. It was really important for them, you know. And like you said, it just you know, they were part of the voyage.
Yeah, I can imagine even the tones. I mean, there's some there's some meditation somewhere apparently that when you repeat your own name, it can be very relaxing because it's the first name you've ever heard in your life. Okay. And so then I imagine this idea then when you're out there alone in the Atlantic Ocean, some half-arsed, let's call it half-arsed vessel. I don't know what the fuck it was. You can talk about that, like, but to hear the sounds of your parents in that, it'd be comforting. Like, what, even if they're giving out to you, you'd be happy enough. Like, what are you doing out here?
Yeah.
You know, there'd be some sort of calmingness of it, I imagine.
It was always at night as well. Like, I'd always have the sat phone on between 9 and 10, I think it was. So, like, it just kind of have gotten dark as well, you know. So you'd crawl into the cabin, and I literally crawl in because it's tiny, you know what I mean. It was only about 2 meters 10, so it's only about kind of 11 or 12 centimeters longer than me, you know what I mean. So you're in this little kind of cubby hole basically, and so you feel protected by that. That's your refuge, that little area, and then to be able to kind of just lie back and relax and have that conversation. No matter what was been said, it was just nice to kind of be able to connect with people like that, and you'd answer a few text messages as well, you know. So it was a real kind of important part of the crossing, you know, for me to just to have that some sort of dialogue and some sort of connection with some people, you know, because you know there was another 23 hours during the day where I was just on my own in my own head, you know.
And what was your, we'll say, routine is the wrong word, but you must have had some sort of schedule to your day. Like, I'm curious about even things like your food in the morning time and what sort of food you had, and like, so from the moment of waking, what sort of ritual?
So I stayed
rituals, fuck, makes it seem nice, but go on.
I stayed on Spanish time the whole way across, even though we went through 4 time zones, I think. So I'd get up at what I thought was 6 a.m. Spanish time, and then I'd take about half an hour. It depended. I'd take half an hour or an hour to kind of get the boat ready, because you had to tie down, like everything had to be lashed down, because you never know what the hell you're going to go through in the night time. So, because I did lose an oar early doors from not being vigilant enough in my fixing up the boat at night, you know. So I'd loosen everything out, and then I'd either have breakfast in that. If it was half an hour, I wouldn't. I'd just have a shake, a protein shake with some carbs and some creatine, and then if it was an hour, I'd actually have some food. So breakfast would just be, I'd boil water and add it to the dehydrated rations that we brought.
Cool. So what are they like? What?
So in that case,
that nice.
No, it's not. Well, they're not too bad. Like, I brought a huge variety of different companies. We had to bring 90 days worth of food, 6,500 calories a day. So in most cases, it was something like scrambled eggs and potatoes and peppers.
Okay. Is this like airplane food?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, even probably not even as nice. You know.
Yeah.
You didn't really have much solid protein as such. It was all kind of dehydrated meats and spaghetti bolognese and that sort of stuff. So, and then just add water to it, and it's really light and it's really caloric. So it's perfect for what you need for the crossing. You know what I mean? Because you want the boat to be as light as possible, obviously, to get it across as fast as possible. So.
And there's not much joy in it, though. It's not like, you know, you're looking forward to your breakfast. It's more eating for the sake of fuel, is it?
Well, there becomes a reliance on it, and it becomes a big factor in your kind of in your kind of happiness. You know what I mean? Because it's an important part of the day when you have food, and you need to really kind of enjoy it at some level. And some days you get really sick of 1 or 2 meals, but if you pulled out a meal that you really liked, it would be a big kind of factor in your kind of morale.
Yeah.
So it is important, and I was pretty happy with the way I prepared for that. You know, I think, like I said, bringing the big variety just kept things fresh. You know, more often than not. There was times where there were certain meals I became sick of really quickly, and
like what?
There was a pad thai that I bought, and I'd heard these rave reviews about it online. You know, it's so good, and I was like, oh, I like pad thai, right? And I ate it the first 3 days, and then I couldn't stomach it after that. Like, it was really rich, and no, it just wasn't for me. You know, but so that got, like, I must have had about 20 packets of that left at the end. You know, that every time I pull out a meal, I just throw it into a different locker.
So like a lucky dip then.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then every 7 days I had these little, I put together these little packets of, like, celebrations, quality street roses, you know, just to
little
have
looking
something
forward,
exactly. And I was finished. I think I finished them within 5 weeks. You know, I was literally searching them out, trying to find them, because they were so
they must
tasty.
have been heavenly,
They were unbelievable. Little drops of heaven, like the dairy milk. Like, oh my god, it's just beautiful.
Oh yeah, Jesus, I can only imagine that now. Yeah. And so that was the kind of and like so the morning you'd have your breakfast around that time.
Yeah, and then I'd row basically for until about 1 o'clock. That was my longest stint in the day.
Okay.
So you would wake up and it'd still be dark, and then you'd literally watch the whole sunset and the sky change from black to grey, and then the sun rising, and then so that was that was the kind of easiest part of the day for me for most of the journey, until right at the end there was a couple of really early mornings that were really difficult, because the conditions got really big again, big waves, big seas, and that means that I'm constantly getting hit by waves, so I'm constantly wet, and it's dark, and it was pretty cold as well, so it was just miserable, absolutely miserable. There was about 4 days in a row where it was really just grim, and because I was right at the end, your body was kind of shutting down a little bit, because you were thinking about the finish. You know what I mean? You weren't in that place mentally where you know there's a long way to go, so you don't relax at all. But I think when the finish is in sight, I think just organically or naturally you just kind of, you almost switch off a little bit, or your body starts to go, well, soon enough it's going to be, you know, time to take it easy, you know what I mean? Yeah, I felt like that everything was becoming harder at that stage. Like anytime you'd get everything seemed to be sore, like all my joints, and obviously my arse was in bits at that stage with pressure sores and the salt sores as well, and then you're wet and you're cold, and that was pretty grim. But before that, the mornings were quite enjoyable, you know, because you know you were kind of rolling through the sunrise, and then you were getting the heat coming onto you, and you know you weren't too wet as well at that stage. So I quite enjoyed them. It was kind of later in the day I found really difficult.
Yeah, you had Christmas Day out there, like, didn't you?
Yeah, that was early enough. I think day 11 or 12 or something like that. And that was a great day because I had loads of the conditions were really good. The sunrise was absolutely incredible. I talked to my brother early in the day, talked to my parents twice that day, loads of text messages, you know, so the going was good, so I was flying along and I hadn't really had any problems. So as much as I suppose you think it mightn't be a great day, you might feel a bit lonely, I didn't. Far from it. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, but you'd happy, hadn't you, with there's the image of you with the Santa hat, yeah.
Yeah, it was sunrise, like I took a picture I think with sunrise with the Santa hat. It was just incredible that morning, so it just put me in a good buzz for the day, you know. And then talk, because I wouldn't be used to talking to people early in the day, whereas on that day I did talk to my brother, you know.
Yeah.
Glorious day 12 on the Atlantic, folks, and it's Christmas!
Because like it's 12 hours on a saddle. That's every day a marathon almost, isn't it? Or more, sorry, that's every day 4 times a marathon almost.
Yeah, I suppose it is, yeah. I was doing, I think, average between like around 40 miles a day, or nautical miles, 40 to, some days I think I got into the 50s, but once the steering went, that kind of just slowed me down. So at the end, every day my goal was, for the last kind of maybe 3 or 4 weeks, when I got over halfway, was just to do 40 miles a day. So some days I'd stay on much longer. Like one day I did 19 hours on the oars because I got pushed really far south. It was only about 500 miles from Antigua, so they were a little bit worried that you might miss the island, even though you're 500 miles away, because it's obviously a tiny island and the approach is really is a little bit difficult. So I had to push north when the conditions subsided a little bit. So I was just really conscious of putting in the hours, and in that day I only got 39 miles if I remember correctly, but that was like one of the sweetest 39 miles I ever got, you know. It was just because I had to work so hard, and I got far enough north where I could be comfortable in my position, you know, because like I said, I got blown like 63 miles south in the space of 48 hours or something. So there was a little bit of worry with that.
Yeah, fucking hell. Like, say sitting here now on the couch, would you, if you could be miraculously put back there, would you go back?
Yeah, I'll do another ocean row. Definitely,
you will,
yeah. I like those, as miserable and as hard, and the kind of suffering and the hardship behind it. I loved it.
Did you?
Yeah, I loved the challenge of it, you know. And there was times out there where it was just amazing, you know. It was an emotional roller coaster. There was times where like you were as high as a kite, and then there was times where you were as low, you know, peaks and troughs. But you know, you can't say it wasn't exciting. You can't say it wasn't different. And you know, coming back to what I said right at the start, that's a place I kind of want to.
That's your zone.
Yeah, that's exactly where I want to live, you know.
Yeah, like we were talking a little bit downstairs about the first day and the preparation. Like, this is, you said 12 years in the making, and then 18 months of training. 18 months.
18 months.
That's serious dedication.
Yeah, you know, if you're going to do something, you do it properly, right? So that's how important it was to me, you know. And my training was really like diligent, and it was everything in my life. I suppose that comes from rugby. Everything in my life was kind of revolving around the row, you know. So I would I would make my decisions kind of around that, like, is this good for the end goal of rowing the Atlantic? So that's how important it was to me, you know. And I think I'm very honest with myself, and at times I kind of I wouldn't have been happy with my training and where it was, and I'd always kind of reset and kind of bounce back. And because the period was so long, like, I found it quite difficult to really be on top of my training for that whole 18 months. So again, there was kind of peaks and troughs in that, but at the end I was really happy where I was at physically and mentally, and I felt really, really prepared for the row. But I made one mistake, and that was just tapering off too long before the start of the row. So I ended up taking, I think, 23 days, and my body almost detrained a little bit, and then that's why day one was really hard, because my body went into some sort of shock because I hadn't done exercise really in that 23 days.
And in the time, you obviously go out onto the sea in training, do you?
Yeah. We have to do, to qualify for the race, you have to do 72 hours on water training, and 24 of them have to be nighttime hours. Okay. And it all has to be documented, and you have to produce the documentation to the race organisers. Okay. So I just about got my I think I did 73 hours, whereas some teams have done hundreds of hours. But the reason kind of behind just getting 72 hours for me was the west coast of Ireland is just not an ideal place to be training in an ocean rowing boat, believe it or not, because the most dangerous part of an ocean row is around the coast. With the winds, and those boats are designed to be blown, so the winds can just kind of pick the boat and push them onto the rocks, you know. There's no stopping it basically if that does happen. So I was quite curtailed by the weather at home, and I was just about able to get my hours in the end, but at the same time it doesn't really matter, because nothing can prepare you for what you're going to face. So day one, tough going. Started quite well, caught and passed about 4 boats, and then it all started to go wrong. Blisters, heel and hands, cramps everywhere, quads, hammies, calves, completely dehydrated, seasickness, constant vomiting. In fairness though, I felt better after I got sick a lot of times. So and then tried to get some rest, got blown back a mile, caught up that mile again and tried to get more rest, and put out the power anchor and got blown back a mile and a half. Fuck me. And then this morning I've been on since 6, and it's now 1 o'clock, so 7 hours straight on the oars, and I've only rowed about 4 miles. Fucking really tough going. Really tough going. I can eat a bit today. I didn't eat anything yesterday, but can eat a bit today. I don't feel too seasick, getting a shake into me and that. But this is going to be fucking epic, man. This is only 24 hours in, and it's tough. All right.
And that's what it felt like when the reality of it dawned on you. Because if it was easy, I mean, did I hear you saying, or somebody saying, like, the amount of people that have done this, there's more people that have gone to space, done the Atlantic row.
Yeah, more people. Summited Everest, and more people have been into space. And that's in teams as well. So when you boil it down to a solo, you're in a really, really, really small percentage of the
And so with that in mind, then this that first day, that's, I think, probably why that first day was so overwhelming, I would have thought. On top of everything, it was just, this is the reality, and I'm starting, and I'm being pushed back, and I'm trying to push ahead, and I'm being pushed back, and I'm making no progress, and this is day one when it's supposed to be the happiest and the buzziest about the whole thing.
Yeah, and if you imagine, like, I could always rely on my body and my kind of physical preparedness, and for that to be kind of rocked mentally, that was like a big kind of problem for me. You know what I mean? Because I'm just not used to being in that space, and I was kind of going, what the fuck is happening to me? Like, my body was going into, so I'd see sickness. Obviously, I kind of expected that on day one and day two, and then I had these severe cramps in every little muscle on my legs for whatever reason, and then all the calluses on my hands blistered, and on my heels as well. So I had all that to deal with, and then I got blown back. So I was making very, very little headway. I was only going 0.6 or 0.5 of a knot, which is basically crawling. So I said, listen, try and get some sleep, let your body recover, get some water into you, and get back up, and then we'll have another go to see if it makes a difference, see if you can kind of get a little bit of recovery. I'd been blown back a mile in about 2 hours when I tried to get some sleep. So I said, fuck it, I'll make that mile up, and then I'll put out a thing called a para anchor, which is it's a parachute anchor that sits in the water underneath, and it holds you in place. It holds about 2 tons of water in it. So I did that, and then when I woke up again the next morning, like after about 5 hours sleep, I'd gone back a mile again. So that shook me, because what I was thinking was, well, firstly, that shouldn't happen, and secondly, if that's happening in these light headwinds, what's going to happen when I'm faced with storms out in the middle of the Atlantic? I'm going to be in big shit. Like, what mistakes did I make? So that was all playing on my mind. So, and then I had another 6 hours rowing, I think, to make up the ground I lost. In that, it was only like a few miles, but I was going nowhere. Like, so, it's so much going on, and I was in a pretty I don't know, low and pretty kind of different place that I'm not used to, you know. So yeah, completely shook me. And then I made that video, and yeah, it just got like serious kind of interest going. But you could see how kind of even some of my friends said to me, like, they'd never seen me in that sort of state before. You could just see how kind of difficult it was, and the realities that was ahead of me, and well,
I think that is truth, or that vulnerability, or that fucking whatever you want to call it. There, he was, when I was looking at you, it was kind of just, you were like disappointed in yourself, and you were fucking just, you were kind of just, what's the right, it seemed you were going on, but the excitement of going on wasn't there in that moment in time. You were going to go on, that was no doubt, but it was like it had given you a good kick up the hole almost.
Big time.
Yeah.
And as well as that, I suppose just hearing you say that now reminded me that, like, I was out of the race at that stage. You know, it was still like my goal was just to cross and to do it as fast as possible, but it was, I was an athlete, so there's a competitive side to me. So, but I was out of the race there, and then, you know, I couldn't, and there was obviously disappointment in that.
Yeah.
Because it started so well. Like, I passed 4 boats in the first 5 or 6 hours. I thought, man, I'm going to plow, because I was the last person to start. I thought there was 24 boats ahead of me. I thought, I'm going to plow through this field now and catch everyone. How wrong I was.
Yeah, but that's brilliant though. In a way, I think that, because like, even when you got battered and bruised, one, you know, with the blood and all that, and the fear and survival, none of that seemed to bother you as much as the start. But I think it's totally because of the high of actually starting something that had been in the making for so long, and then the reality of it is so fucking different. Even though you know, because that's the way you are. You know it's going to be tough. It's like we don't know. We can't remember pain, I think. Do you ever, you know, you can't actually hold on to the feeling of pain or suffering.
No.
It's just, you can only remember the good stuff, the highs, which is great. There
exactly.
has to be that, you know.
Yeah, that if you imagine, like I said to you, I was 12 years ago, I discovered this race, and I knew then and there I'd do it, and then the 18 months preparation. And there's a saying in ocean rowing, the hardest part of it is getting to the start line. So when I got to the start line, you know, because even in the week building up to it, like, you've got this 12-page document of rules and regulations you have to adhere to. So there's even a little bit of doubt, even when you're there with your boat, like, ready to go, that you're still going to make the start line. Then you make the start line, and, you know, you say goodbye to your parents, and it's a huge emotional, like, spike, you know. and there's the whole relief of actually starting, and then the joy, and I was like I said to you earlier on, one minute I'd be laughing and I'd be like shouting and hollering, and then I'd be crying, and I was like, I don't know what was happening. So yeah, and then it all came crashing down about 6 hours later when I started having all the physical problems and getting blown back, and yeah, so I was the best way I can tell you is I was completely shook there when I made that video, and that was kind of as low a place as I got on the whole thing. But one of my great strengths is I process that stuff really quickly, and I don't feel too sorry for myself. And
yeah, you used I heard that word process. That's an interesting word to use about. Because the nature of us is the emotions and feelings and whatever can totally take over. But the way you describe the word process is kind of like you put it somewhere else, so you put them to a place. Or can you describe that a little bit, just how you do that, how you kind of say, well, or I'm processing through it. Just it's an interesting word to use about something overwhelming.
Sure.
Let's say.
I suppose when I hear you talking there, what I was thinking was I question my feeling, and then I'm like, so I'm obviously feeling real sorry for myself, but what good is that going to do me? Like, I've got 3,000 miles to go. I'm feeling sorry for myself here for another, hour or 2 hours or another day isn't going to get me any further. Like, so I go, right, well, you've got a job to do, so let's get on with it, because sitting here wallowing in your own kind of self-pity is pretty, useless, so let's get going. Like,
well, that's brilliant though. Really, even just that, I really like that kind of questioning. What good exactly is this where's it going to take me? It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. No, it's not going to get me further along this particular fucking journey.
Exactly, yeah. So you might as well make it as short as possible and get on with it.
So that kind of evolved, like that wasn't just a quick, well, let's snap out of this. That was there was the discussion, and you just kept going, like, simply. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When you got to the end, you said never give up. That was your big kind of, not your big, but that was the first thing out of you almost.
Yeah, that's I like. There was times out there where the easy thing would have been to have just given up or just taken some time off, or felt sorry for myself, but again, like, that wouldn't have done me much good in the goal of actually crossing the ocean. So it was just, I had to just keep kind of working really hard every day, and the facts are the things that happened to me out there with the especially with the steering brake and just making it so difficult. It would have been it would have been really easy just to kind of use that excuse to kind of feel sorry for myself, or take the easy option. But the fact that I just kept saying to myself, just don't give in, just keep going, keep grinding, never give up. And I just had to keep coming back to that every day, and the hours and hours of sitting on my already destroyed backside would have been I could have easily justified it to myself to just crawled into the cabin and slept for a day. And
was there a chat in your head about you've done 12 days now, you've done 15 days, you've given it a good old go, just ring now and just pick up the phone and go, can we and look, there's something, or break something on the boat. Just break the front of it and go, you know what, I'll call it in, so I can't go, or fuck the 2 hours away. No,
absolutely.
But there could have easily been like that. Sure. That wouldn't be outside the realms of possibility. I'm going to just fuck the 2 hours away. Say I lost them overnight, and what can I do? Like,
I was actually the exact opposite. I was like, I kept telling myself nothing will stop me rowing across the Atlantic. Nothing. I just kept saying that. Some days I'd be screaming it like out loud, because I'd been saying that to myself for 18 months basically. And things like, for example, the oars. When I lost one oar, I had to use my second set. They became basically the most important thing. Like, if I could have wrapped them in cotton wool and chained them down to the boat, I would have. You know what I mean? That's how important they were to the success, or the fact that I had trying to achieve my goal to cross the Atlantic. You know what I mean? So, so it was quite the opposite to thinking about ways out, because for me the thing was just to cross and achieve something cool.
Yeah, achieve something fucking amazing. But I just there at night time when you're locking up, you're almost locking up like your life depends on it.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, and there's always a worry then. So you do everything, and then you double check it and triple check it and make sure like.
Little bit of OCD behind you there, really. Have I checked this? Go back.
And it's not easy. Like I know, I'm just sitting here saying that now, but I imagine I remember when I was the position the oars had to be tied down. Like I had to lean over the side, and then obviously it's pitch black, and you're getting bashed by waves, and you're just making sure your harness is there, because you could easily be pushed over the side of the boat, you know what I mean? So it's not an easy process to go through, to be diligent and go through things like triple check things, because it's dangerous, like, you know. So the easy thing would be it's grand, it should be fine, you know. But I made that mistake when I lost the first oar, and I wasn't making it again, because that was paramount to me crossing, you know.
Yeah, but so if you're lying, say you locked up everything and you're just lying down, did you there must have been times where you just went, is that perfectly done? Do I need to get back up and check that again?
Yeah, and you're constantly listening for different noises, and you're going, is that the oar come loose? And you're playing games with yourself, going, and then you go out and check, and it'd be perfectly there in place where you left it. But you're always on edge a little bit, because she's such a beast. Like the Atlantic is a monster, man, and she can whip up a storm, and you're completely at her mercy, so even a few knots here and there aren't really going to stop her if she wants to kind of kick the shit out of you, like.
Yeah, so when there was some images of the waves coming, and it was like you see in the movies almost, they were so high. You're not rowing in those, are you? Mm-hmm. You are rowing.
Yeah. I countless times I'd be rowing, and these big, I'd be in the trough, and you just see the wave, maybe 7 or 8 meter swell coming at you, and I just go, holy mother of God, look at that thing, man. But thankfully they roll, do you know what I mean? They don't break. They only start breaking when the wind is really high, like around 25 knot winds, and that's when you're at the risk of capsizing, because you just find yourself in the wrong angle going up a wave, and then it breaks and it just pushes the boat over.
Yes, explain to me now. So if you're rowing, capsize, I don't know if this is an obvious question, but capsize means you're totally underneath. No?
Yeah, exactly. The boat basically flips over, goes around.
And so you're under but you're under the water. Yeah.
So the second time I capsized, I was on deck,
but you're strapped in, obviously.
So I wear a harness at all times.
Okay.
Or either a life jacket. At that stage, I had the life jacket on, and the life jacket is I'm clipped into a line which is called a jackstay on the boat. I was simply I was trying to fix the steering, so the steering was giving me some problems, so I was kind of in a strange position on the boat, as in I had my back to the waves, and I was kind of crouched down, and I just came out of the crouch because it was hurting my knees, if you're in a crouch for a while, to anyone, and I just looked over my shoulder, because we were in huge conditions that day, and I just saw this wave break, and I go, I'm gone here. So I just had the wherewithal to grab a handle here on the back of the cabin, and around we went, and it's the most vivid memory of the row, because even when I was underwater, I was just so calm, and I was just said one thing to myself. I was like, just squeeze your grip, and I actually had the awareness to be able to, even in that crazy situation, just to be able to concentrate and focus on one little thing. I just squeezed my grip, and I was strapped in, but still you can only control what you can control. And at that time, that was it, so even now I'm kind of a little bit still in awe of myself. I haven't been able to do that, because it's all well and good visualizing it, but when the reality hits, to have the focus to be able to do that is pretty cool, like.
Yeah, so does the boat come back round? Do you just sit it out under the water? I mean, there is the chance it won't come back round, obviously.
No, they're designed to self-right. Okay. That being said, one boat that did abandon this year didn't self-right for whatever reason. But they're designed so the cabin is like you know, it's once the cabins are closed, they're an air pocket, and you've a load of ballast underneath, so all the weight is underneath. So obviously, when the boat's turned upside down, it'll just flip because of the weight, you know.
So everything then in the boat, you can't even just go, oh sure, you know what, I'll leave this fucking thing here, or I'll leave that open. I'll leave that open, even if it's okay. You have to lock up everywhere, do you?
Yeah, you have to be really careful
all the
with
time.
that all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're under. So then you're sorry. So you're under the water then, and it passes. Obviously, you come back up again.
Came back up. I'm not sure. I'm going to say 7 to 10 seconds, something like that. Yeah. Even that sounds like a very short space of time, but when you're under there, you're like, seems a lot longer. And I was saying to myself, just squeeze your grip. The boat will self-right, and just wait, and then sure enough, I just got kind of flipped around and ended up kind of landing on my kind of neck, head, back area, still clutched onto the handle. But very happy to be on something solid.
And you're still, you're probably, are you just waiting for it to, you're just riding it out then, is it? Or you're just, or what, do you get into gear? Do you get into action? Or do you just, what do you do? And then when you come back round,
it was a bit crazy. Then you're kind of just trying to not let that happen again, basically. And that day in particular was crazy, because I had capsize in the morning where I was asleep in the cabin. I got thrown against the side of the cabin. That's how I woke up, like when my head hit the cabin, and then complete kind of pandemonium, because the cabin, I had all these nettings, with stuff I use every day in the netting, so that was all on top of me. And then there was a little hole for the water maker, so there was some water in the cabin, so I had that. And then after the second capsize, I nearly went over 3 more times. I was kind of 90 degrees to the water, but the wave just wasn't strong enough to knock me over,
Yeah.
So I was completely on edge all day. Survival mode is the best way I can describe it. I was constantly looking over my right shoulder, just looking at the waves coming, going, I wonder, is this one going to knock me over? And I was stressed. I'm really, really stressed. So I rang the guy who built my boat, who was giving me some advice, who's done an ocean row, and he told me to put out a thing called a drogue. Which is it's like a windsock, and it trails like 50 meters out, but what it does is it holds you downwind and down waves, so so basically you're just rolling over the waves instead of inside on. And he said that'll minimize the chances of you capsizing. So I put that out around 8 o'clock that night, strapped everything down, and just crawled into bed, and I slept for 12 hours or something, because I was so fried. I was completely just drained mentally and physically. Yeah,
that's a day's work. That's a day. Bloody hell! Yeah, you earned your sleep.
Yeah, just fucking insane day. And since that, man, I've just been on edge, survival mode, battling the elements. Nearly went over twice more. Finally, the winds have calmed down a tiny bit, so I'm making this video. But listen, all's good. I'm fine. I know I'm going to tell you not to worry, because don't worry, because you couldn't want a better person in this place. As there's a poem above where I sleep that Cathy Sturch and MacDara Hosty gave to me before I left, both of them independently, and one of the lines is, my head is bloodied but unbowed, and that's where I'm at the moment.
Is it nearly, when you're in the fucking adrenaline of survival, is it easier is the wrong word now, right? But say the other days, and you were describing the monotony and the boredom and the pain and just the relentlessness of it. I don't think easier isn't the right word, because you can never take that 12 hours for granted, those survival.
Yeah.
But it's a different sort of a thing, surely. Is it mentally? You're not. Nobody's complaining about the stress of it, or the worry, or the pain of it, or anything. That's all gone. It's just pure. It's just pure survival.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't think about all those small little things, or you don't even hear the voices in your head. You're just thinking about surviving. You know what I mean? And doing what you can do to survive. Whereas on the days where the conditions were calmer or even flat, the hard thing is the voice in your head just kind of trying to justify, or trying to kind of weaken your resolve, because that's when you feel everything, you know. You feel all the little niggly pains, and they almost get amplified by the silence and the calmness of it all, you know.
So if you imagine like sitting on sandpaper for that amount of time every day, what that does is it puts you in a weak position mentally then, and you start to think about a lot of things that are out of your control, things that are none of your business, like what other boats are doing, what the weather's going to do, what people think of you and what you're doing. So you know, I had to reset basically, and there's 4 things I normally do when I want to reset mentally and put myself back in a strong mindset, excuse me. And they are 1, concentrate on your breath. 2 is control your position on the oars and your technique. 3 is your effort that you can control, and 4 is your self-talk. So all those things really, really work, and they're real powerful things to do. So yeah, I feel like I'm in a much better place now since I kind of analysed that and reset.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this is where the first thing I'd ever seen of you was when you talked about the self-talk, and you mentioned 3 or 4 things, but you said it's important that I get certain things right. I do my check and I do whatever, and I get my self-talk in gear. You talk a little bit more about that, and just
well, yeah, it's like you can either be positive or negative, right? But I think, I don't know if it's just me, but I think we're more inclined to be negative. So it's just having that awareness that you are being negative and bringing it back to a positive kind of place. So I use a process again for that. First, like I said, you're aware, and then you have a kind of a cut statement or a mantra or something that's quite blunt, really, really blunt to yourself. And then that cuts the negative thought process, and then you reaffirm it with some positive sayings. So like I don't know if I said it that time, but I'd be saying I'm unbreakable, I'm unstoppable, I'm indestructible, and I keep repeating that to myself. Yeah. And there's if once you have that positive statement, if you can get a visualization with it, so I would often try and see myself from above, almost like a bird's eye view of this, you know, one person in a little boat trying to cross this immense kind of ocean. And then I would try and get a feeling as well, so a feeling of being indestructible, a feeling of power really is what you're looking for with the statement. And if you got those 3 things, it just completely change, you know, you just feel great again, you know.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing I find is the feeling, because some days I could just say it quietly to myself and I get it, and other days I'd say it quietly and I wouldn't get that feeling. So what I did was I started roaring, like trying to really say it as loud as possible. It's like just screaming at the top of my voice, and then I'd get that kind of feeling of power, or feeling of being unstoppable, you know. And yeah, it works really, really well.
Yeah, okay. And so like the blunt kind of question is like something like, is this doing me any good? Is it that sort of thing? Or?
No, I'd just stop being a...
Oh, really?
Yeah. Stop
okay.
being a something, see you next Tuesday or something like
No, okay, I like that. Yeah. So it's as blunt as that, like, just shut the fuck up. Like.
Yeah, basically,
and then you're actually using your will then, almost. You're willing yourself out of that fucking... It's a rabbit hole, almost, to go down that route, which doesn't bring you anywhere, only further rabbit holes, unfortunately.
Yeah. What I found interesting was the way I'm just inclined to be negative, or I think it's much easier to be negative than positive, you know, and I think I just found myself in a negative space, and more often than not, I'm not sure if it had something to do with the pain, the physical pain, and that just eating away at you, or that bringing you into a negative pace. But well,
you'd want to be a bit fucking peculiarly built to have your fucking ass in bits, your hand in bits, you're rowing for 12 hours, battling one of the fucking greatest beasts on the planet, being the Atlantic. Well, I mean, is there anything comparable? And to be going, da, 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 this is great, you know, everything's lovely, I'm really positive and happy now.
Right, yeah.
I mean, you'd want to get checked out by the doctor.
That's
I think,
true,
you know, in fairness to you.
I never thought of it like that. But I suppose, but
just to be fair to yourself, to give yourself a little chance,
right,
you know, you're all right. Like.
It's trying to be. There was so many times where I wish I had a switch where I could just flick off my brain and just roll for like 10 hours and then turn it back on. But we don't have the luxury of such a thing, so we have to deal with ourselves and our thoughts and our feelings and.
We were kind of. It's interesting, this idea that how you can sometimes disappear, we'll say, for 20 minutes into a nice kind of a thought or some sort of. Maybe you're imagining what you're going to say when you get to the end, or you're some fucking situation that is a nice, pleasant thing to think about, and you disappear in that, and almost you disappear. There's nothing else going on. The roan is happening, but you're not thinking about the roan. The pain is there, but you're not thinking about the pain, and you're off with that thought. And then you come back and you go, oh fuck, trying to get back to that thought, like.
Oh, I'd pay good money if I was able to for that space. Yeah, I know. I don't know where it comes from, but every now and again you just get into that real kind of like almost daydreaming, isn't it?
It's a flow. Is it flow state?
Yeah.
You can't make it happen. It's almost like you're kind of. It's like when you go to sleep at night. There's that moment. You can never remember the exact moment you fall asleep. You're just suddenly there, and then you're not there. You're gone, and then you wake up. But that moment, and it's kind of like that for. I think when you get lost in thought like that.
Unfortunately it didn't happen. Well, I had a few stages where you would disappear for a nice kind of hour or whatever, and and the rest of the day then you'd just be constantly battling with yourself. But
it's like a free hour almost. Is it like a free hour? When you're gone like that.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a great place. Yeah, like I said, I'd pay good money to be able to just go back to it every time to time.
Yeah, because you mentioned to me about forgetting your fucking or not having your earphones.
Yeah.
And you're audible.
Yeah, I must have spent about €400 on audiobooks, and there was some audiobooks I was really looking forward to hearing, kind of stuff that I like people had recommended to me, and day 4 I think was the first day I said, okay, I'll throw one on now to hear, start into some stuff, and sure enough I couldn't hear the voices over the wind, because the wind is constantly howling, howling. And I hadn't used any audiobooks. I'd used music in my training a little bit through the speakers, but never audiobooks or podcasts, which I had loads of. So unfortunately,
you probably had some motivational ones in there, did you?
I had. What had I? I had loads of stuff like some like Nelson Mandela's autobiography, and I had some stuff like Creativity Inc., which is the book by the CEO of Pixar and Steve Jobs' autobiography, stuff like that. You'd get something from as well.
Even a couple of sentences. To get you through. Yeah,
so, something to think about. But that was out the window. So that was pretty disappointing, and I didn't. Because I had the speakers, I didn't bring headphones because we were kind of. Everything breaks in ocean rowing. Like the seawater is just cruel. Like it just rips it. It just destroys everything. So you have to bring about 8 sets. So I didn't even bother bringing 1 set. So but I could still hear music. But then I had started having issues with charging my phone and the cable. So then I had to really dial back on that. So it was only like I'd put on the music for an hour on when it got dark at night, on the first hour of darkness, just to help me, because I always found that time really difficult. At the end of the day, you can kind of roam for like maybe 10 hours, on and off at that stage. So I found that time really difficult, So the music helped. But then later on I had to delete the music app because my phone was all backed up with I was taking a daily personal video.
Okay.
So I needed space on my phone, so that got jettisoned as well. So I was down to basically no luxuries or no audible at all at that stage.
So it's just you and your thoughts. I had been thinking, the likes of Jesus and all that out in the deserts for 40 days, and he epiphanies and all that sort of thing. But like you're 63 days out in the ocean.
Yeah.
Is there not epiphany is fucking terrible because it's survival is the epiphany, I think. But when you're alone like that, like, is there anything you can say about the level? Like, you've done the greatest of all team sports, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of rugby. It is utterly a team sport, and then this road is a lone warrior road almost. Like it is, you're alone.
I kind of did it because I know team sports. I know a team. I think I was a decent team member, and I didn't really have a lot to learn by kind of going down the team route in an Ocean Row. So I really wanted to do it on my own and kind of challenge myself there with that in that space. So and you know what, it wasn't a problem for me. It wasn't a big issue out there being alone. There was a couple of times I felt a little bit alone, but only a couple of times where I kind of just felt a bit sorry for myself, and I was like, oh, I'm out here trying to do something pretty cool, and does anyone really give a shit? But then I'd all I'd have to do was ring home or talk to Owen, who's doing my social media, and he says, yeah, a lot of people give a shit.
Yeah.
There's a serious following behind you, and there's a serious amount of interaction on your posts and that. So it was pretty easy to get past that. So yeah, like I said, it wasn't something that I found particularly challenging, But I'm pretty comfortable in my own, been on my own and been in my own head. And I was able to kind of persevere and no problem.
Yeah, okay. And so when you're out there in the do you get any, I will ask I suppose about epiphanies, not epiphanies, but you had that sense of never give up. That was a big overriding thing. But was there ever a kind of a peace with yourself? Because you seem to me like it, you're talking about Iran, but you're going to go on and do more fucking stuff. It's just your nature from the little bit of time. And sometimes that can be, I would have thought, it can be too much. It can be too much if you can't. Now I'm putting words at you, so you can tell me. But this idea of just letting yourself be, like, just, you've done it. Take it easy for a while. Or was there? Do you ever get that feeling, even at halfway, where you kind of went, "Fuck, it's happening." Like, I'm not going to get too focused on the finishing line, but I'm doing this.
Yeah,
this is happening.
That was a big thing for me out there, was to not get too kind of outcome oriented and not to think too much, because that puts you in a disempowered place if you're thinking about the outcome and the finish, instead of just trying to be kind of, I know it's an overused statement these days, but just trying to be present, and trying to be in the moment, or just basically just concentrated on those things that you can control there and then, and that's where you kind of, I found I got into a real good kind of almost neutral, not too high, not too low place, when I was just thinking about the what I was going through, and the sounds, and just trying to delve into the five senses a little bit. Take in what you're looking at, and take in what you're smelling and what you're seeing and what you're touching. So when I was kind of just thinking about my effort and my position on the oars, and what I was saying to myself, and then what I was seeing, and just making sure I was uncluttered mentally, and also on the deck that everything was kind of uncluttered as well, because what I noticed was when I got quite low, it was a bit of a mess.
Did it bother you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you just control the controllables, I never had really, I don't remember having any kind of epiphany or anything like that, having any huge kind of what's the word? Any huge kind of insightful thoughts or images, but
I think, though, to be honest, what it is it's the wrong question. You see, you're physically you're a big man, right? But I think what something like this does is this mental strength is a different thing. Mental strength can be built like a muscle, and even the language you use, like, is akin to something that is of mental strength. And that is, process is one word you use, but I can't remember what you said a couple of seconds ago, but it's just how you kind of organise your thinking to be almost neutral. And in a way, that's the strength, or that's the thing that comes out of the whole thing, this ability to be able to survive. through it.
Yeah, like the mental strength's a really interesting one, because I think people think or have a misconception about it, like that they think certain people are mentally strong, but you know, I didn't lick it off the ground. I trained and practiced it and put myself back into those positions where I have to practice my mental strength processes, you know. So how do you get better at anything? You practice and you put in the hours doing it, and that's what I've done, and I think that's, you know, paid dividends in my mental strength. And it's not just for these crazy challenges or these epic kind of endurance events. Like it's for daily life as well, you know. You know, I do it because the benefits are more inclined for my daily life rather than these once off or once a year or twice a year adventures, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think it is that though, because you build as a result of the discipline, and it does come down to discipline. The discipline turning up every day in the boat when you could have taken it easy. The discipline to have everything organised, not like my room here in front of you, but that continuous repetition does allow then, like I've read this book recently, it's Jordan Peterson, this guy, it's an Antidote to Chaos, and he talks about mental discipline and this idea of keeping your house in order first. Don't fucking bother going outside trying to change the world if you can't get your house in gear. Clean your back fucking garden, sort of shit. But I think it comes down to simple things, but it's just, I find it really interesting the way you use certain words, that it's not it's what's the right way, it's not just thinking positive, or it's not a kind of, you know, like this new age sort of positive thing. It's actually a focused strength of mind to be able to kind of turn the brain into a positive way, or it's by doing anyway. I think it's the greatest. Is it? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. I do, like, I use it in my training all the time, and if I don't I'm not really interested in training anymore if there's not a mental challenge to it or a mental kind of element. I don't get a lot from it. I don't get any kind of fulfillment or any substance from the session, you know, unless I'm pushed mentally. And if you do that, I find, say I'm training 5 or 6 mornings a week, like those days are a lot better than the days where I don't train for 2 days. You know what I mean? They're just a lot kind of easier. They're more productive. I just feel like I'm in a better mindset or a better place from training early in the morning and giving myself giving myself a mental challenge. And I suppose that's my way of, maybe some people might meditate or something, but that's my way of, you know, meditating in this case.
It's bringing a bit of calm to the brain, I can see. We're going to hit that red light's going to go, so it's going to die any second here. We've done an hour and a little bit. What are you going to do next? Apart from Iran, I know Iran is on.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas. Well, like you said, I'm going to travel around Iran, hopefully. Next month. But for big adventures, I have 2 ideas. I'm kind of slushing around in my head, for want of a better expression. And either another ocean row, or I'll go back to some mountaineering. Yeah. Okay. So that's the plan. But I want to make it more like, I don't want it to be a solo endeavor. I'd like to kind of maybe bring people with me and maybe train them mentally and physically.
Sign me up. I'm fucking serious. Yeah. I am serious. I'd love to do something. I'd have to negotiate a little bit with my wife, but she's just hearing about it now. Right, No, I genuinely would love to. But because you were kind of saying a marathon's just a walk in the park for you, but I'm doing it well. I'm doing my marathon, but I have that craving, man. So if you are kind of, I'd be a perfect person to train because I'm a lightweight. So I have the mental idea to do it, but the physical body needs to be built up. That's for sure. But I fucking would love to. So yeah,
cool. Yeah, I think it's I've done a lot of this sort of stuff, and it brings a lot to my life. So it's important to share that with people and maybe show them a pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah.
So
I'm definitely, if you are bringing a group, I'm definitely. That's it. Like.
Okay,
I
cool.
swear.
Nice one.
I'm gonna. Anyway, listen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks,
Hopefully
Frank.
I'll get you back on.
Yeah, cheers. It was great.
Here we go. We'll flicker off. Hi, if you like the conversation that I just had and you'd like more, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you.
Frank, come on, man.